Did he eat it?
He just was trying to chew through it, I guess. Like just sat there with the piece of my skin in his hand and was just sitting there chewing on it and just, kind of watching me sleep.
Welcome back to Other People's Lives. I'm Joe Santagato.
I'm Greg Dybec.
For anyone out there that would like to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our email is oplpodcast@gmail.com.
Today, we're speaking to a woman who reached out with probably one of the most attention-grabbing subject lines that we've received in a while. It simply reads, "My ex-boyfriend ate my flesh." Obviously open that email, and I think what's really interesting today is we're going to hear a story about someone who was in a relationship with someone for years and years and had no idea that this person had these tendencies or interests to eat them, I guess, for lack of a better term, but we're going to go through the entire story and learn more about this. So we've got the guest on the line, and thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So you were in a relationship with this person for, in your email, you said a 6-year relationship, and you knew them for 7 years. So can we just start at the very beginning, and can you just briefly walk us through how you met this person and why you started dating them? What was this relationship like in the beginning?
Sure. So when we met, I was 18 and he was 22. I think that was back in 2017, maybe. And he was kind of just a friend of a guy that I was seeing on and off. And I guess I didn't really know him personally, but I knew of him and I knew his face and stuff. And then one night I was walking around downtown where I live, high as a kite. And I saw him sitting in his car, and I just kind of stumbled into his car and sat down and started a conversation. And it kind of just went from there. We were friends for a year. He asked me out a lot of times, but I had just gotten out of a fairly long relationship, so I didn't really want anything. And then after a year, I finally said yes. And yeah.
So you dated this person, for many years. And I guess, we can kind of just jump right to.
Well, I have one question before. Do you feel like you, in this time of 6 years, knew this person as best you could?
Yeah, we spent pretty much every single day together. And yeah, I knew everything about him and he knew everything about me.
So there was no indicator that there might be something slightly off.
No, it was completely normal.
And even in your sex life in this relationship, there was never an inkling or a hint or a discussion of anything around, do you call it cannibalism, eating flesh, or even a hard nibble on the ear, that in hindsight you were like, oh wow, there's this might be a kink or there's something there?
I wanted to bring more to our sex life. I was the one that, wanted to, try out new kinks or, try new things. But it wasn't like he wouldn't try them, but he was very neutral or kind of vanilla. Didn't really want to spice things up. In hindsight, that may have been because maybe he had these, thoughts and didn't want to cross that line and then, not be able to control himself.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess now we could jump right to this. Is it can you describe the time where this happened? Just kind of walk us through the entire thing, set the scene and, what actually happened that day.
Well, it was June 8th, 2022. It was like a completely normal day. Like I said, everything about our relationship was just like normal. We lived together. We, spent every day together. Like he would go to work, I would do other things. We would, watch TV at night, go on dates and stuff. So that night was the same pretty much. It was the same as like every other night. And we were sitting like in bed watching a TV show, and I was drinking Pepsi, and I guess he had spiked it. So he roofied me, and about after half an hour is when I started to feel like pretty woozy and tired, but I didn't really think like anything of it. I was like, oh, I'm just getting tired. So I kind of just rolled over and went back to bed. And then I guess anywhere between like 11 p.m. and like 1:30 a.m. is when he had done it.
What did he do exactly?
Well, while I was passed out, he put a black garbage bag underneath my leg and then put a towel on top of that. So it was like bed, garbage bag, towel, my leg. And he'd gotten like these razor blades, and I guess he cut out, a 3 by 6 inch, roughly, give or take, of like the top of my thigh, like my right thigh. But he did it carefully, like kind of like a body modification.
Like surgically removing almost?
Yeah.
3 by 6 isn't small.
Yeah, that sounds big.
That's big. Was this deep? Like a deep cut?
No, it was mainly just like the top layer, like I guess the epidermis or whatever. Just the top layer. But while he was doing it, I guess he had a bunch of paper towel and stuff, and he was taking time, like each like little cut and stuff, and like each section that he kind of took off and peeled back, he kept dabbing the area so that it wouldn't bleed too much. And I don't know if he thought that I would just wake up and be fine with it and be like, oh, fuck, it's fine, whatever. But like he made sure that there was like not a lot of bleeding, and afterwards it just, you could see the scar tissue and a bit of blood. But I guess that's what he did while I was asleep.
Okay.
Did he eat it?
Yeah, he, as much as he could, he sat next to me on the edge of the bed, and he just was trying to chew through it, I guess. Like just sat there with the piece of my skin in his hand and was just sitting there chewing on it and just, kind of watching me sleep.
What the hell? This is wow.
At what point do you come to and realize what's happening?
I think he was able to like actually chew and swallow quite a few bites, but he still had some left. I started to come to, I don't remember exactly what time, but I remember like as I was becoming kind of conscious, I was still like really woozy, and I like felt sick, and then I felt the pain, and it was like going back and forth between like dull aching pain and then like really sharp stinging pain. And I was like, the fuck is this pain? And then I look up and I saw what was in front of me, and all of the pain went away. I didn't feel anything. There was no pain anymore. And I thought that I was just having a really fucked up nightmare, or I was in sleep paralysis or something, because this shit just doesn't happen. I was like, this isn't happening. This is like some weird nightmare or something.
Yeah, you have to think that's a dream.
Yeah,
There's
you woke up and you just saw your boyfriend of 6 years eating a piece of your thigh that he had just cut out.
Yeah.
So that's the image you saw. He's sitting on the edge of the bed, gnawing on your thigh that he's holding in his hand. Okay. Yes. I think anyone
Did that even register? Like, did you think that like, oh, he's eating something else. Why the fuck am I bleeding? And then you had to kind of put it together. What did you say to him? What did he say?
Well, I didn't say anything, but it like nothing was registering. I just was like looking at him, and like tears were streaming down my face because I was more in shock of like, wow, this is like a really terrifying nightmare that I'm going to have to work with the therapist to get over, because but I did not.
A dream of that alone would have an impact mentally going forward. Like, my wife has a dream I cheat on her. She's mad at me for a week. But this is
someone's eating your leg. So
yeah,
there's so many things you'd run through in your mind before it registering that's what's really happening.
Yeah.
I would be like, is this a prank? Is it like an elaborate prank? Am I being filmed? Is it a dream? Is it like...
What was the first thing that he said to you?
well, that's the thing, is he didn't say anything. Neither of us said anything. I just stared, like my eyes were blown just like watching this, and I still felt like sick, but like the pain, I wasn't feeling any of the pain, but I was like seeing the visuals, and it just felt like I wasn't in my body anymore.
Did he seem startled or shocked that you woke up, or was he just eerily calm?
He was just calm. He was just there, and he didn't stop. Like I remember watching, he was having a hard time getting through, like trying to bite through a piece, and I was like, is he eating some tough chicken or something?
Right, because it's also going to take a while for you to realize what he's eating.
Yeah.
So, oh my God.
Yeah, that is a confusing one to wake up to.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. Like, are you also bleeding at this point still? Or is it like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. I would be also like, were you scared?
Well, I was terrified, but like more so terrified as in like this is sleep paralysis.
Like
I don't want to.
Yeah. Like you wake up and you don't know where you are. Yeah. So how long from this state that you're in to fully comprehending what's happening?
I didn't fully comprehend it until he left. It was like he sat there for about a minute and then, got up and walked out. He didn't like take anything. Like he took the flesh, but he didn't like take any of his clothes or anything. He just got up and walked out of the house. Didn't say anything to me. I didn't say anything to him. I was just still thinking that, this isn't like actually happening, or like there's some kind of other explanation. Like I must have watched a scary movie or something before bed. But
so he just got up on his own and left and never said a word to you.
Yeah, he got up and he left, and I sat there, and once I kind of started to feel like a bit less woozy and I was looking at my leg, I was like, shit, I think that I need to go to the hospital. So, I called 911, and I basically just, I didn't know what to say. So I was like, I guess I was in a domestic situation. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know exactly what was happening. So they came and they saw my leg, and I tried to explain the best that I could. They had some people out looking for him, which he didn't really go that far, and he wasn't running. He was just like going out for a stroll.
So they ended up, like the police ended up finding him?
Yeah, they found him walking in the area, like on a side street, and they just picked him up. He hadn't fully finished that piece of my leg. So he just like put the rest in his pocket, and he was just like out walking. And I wasn't like profusely bleeding or anything, because he had, done a good job at, cleaning all that up, I guess. And putting pressure on it to make sure that I didn't bleed too much. It looked like a bunch of scar tissue and like, whatever's underneath skin.
Did you guys ever get to have a conversation of like, what was that? Or have you not spoken?
No, we didn't talk like one-on-one anytime after that. Any time that we were like in the vicinity of each other was, when we had gone to court.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I'm curious, what are some of your self-care non-negotiables? Like if you're into the gym, for example, maybe you make it a point to never skip leg day or never miss more than 2 days in a row. I think of even just simple things like I don't skip a day without brushing my teeth. These are self-care habits that are important to us, that have become ingrained in our schedule, that are non-negotiable, that we do not miss because they help us feel better. They help us relax. They help us be the best version of ourselves. And the thing is, your mental health should be a self-care non-negotiable also. Therapy, if that's something that you're interested in, should be a non-negotiable, because you want to make sure that you're being the best version of yourself, and you want to make sure that the things you want to prioritize are actually getting prioritized. I get it. Your schedule could be packed with activities, with children, with work obligations. It's very hard to keep the schedule that you want to keep of the things that are most important to you. And even if we know that something makes us happy, it can still be hard to find time and fit that into our schedule. But for me, therapy is truly one of those non-negotiables. It is something that has helped me so much. At this point in my life, it has truly helped. We are on tour for the Basement Yard right now, the other podcast that we do in the studio. And that schedule, combined with everything we have to do in the studio, combined with my wife and child being at home when I'm away, it is crazy. It's the craziest schedule I've had in a long time. And I'd be lying if I said it's easy to balance all these things, all these responsibilities, and make sure that the people that I love and care about are okay, and at the same time that I'm okay with all this weight on my shoulder. So therapy is, again, just something that I will never skip no matter how busy my schedule gets, because of how much it helps me and gives me the tools to get through these chaotic and busy times. And if you're thinking of starting therapy yourself, I would say give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is entirely online, so it's designed to fit your schedule. It's convenient, it's flexible, and all you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and you will get matched with a licensed therapist. And the best part of BetterHelp, I think, is that you can switch therapists easily so that you can find someone that you're truly a fit with. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. So you can head to betterhelp.com/OPL and you can get 10% off your first month. Again, that's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. So betterhelp.com/OPL and get 10% off your first month. Guys, the truth is, after a night with some drinks, I do not bounce back the same way. Not like I used to, at least. I basically have to make a choice when I want to drink. Do I want to have a great night or do I want to have a great next day? And it's hard to weigh those two things sometimes. But luckily, I don't have to make that choice anymore. And that's because I found ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol has me feeling fresh after a night of drinking, and I want to tell you guys about it. ZBiotics pre-alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, and it was invented by PhD scientists to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol is converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut, and it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's a common misconception, that's to blame for that rough next day. And ZBiotics pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So if you remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, and of course drink responsibly, then you'll feel your best tomorrow. And I can vouch for this. I am at a point in my life right now. We are on tour with the Basement Yard, one of the other shows that we do in the studio. And, you know, you're on tour, there's later nights, maybe there's some more drinks flowing than usual, but you still have to be sharp the next day because we might have a show the next day or travel. So, you know, you don't want to have a rough morning. And like I said, don't bounce back the same, but I've been bringing Z-Biotics with me on every leg of the tour and making sure that's my first drink before a show night. And man, I feel great the next day, as productive as I normally would. It just feels like I almost didn't even drink the night before, which is amazing. So it's really helped me out. And, you know, the summer's still going strong. Holidays are around the corner. There's so many activities and things coming up, maybe weddings, birthday parties. So having Z-Biotics in your corner is a true game changer, and it has been for me. And you can go to zbiotics.com/OPL and you can get 15% off your first order when you use OPL at checkout. And Z-Biotics pre-alcohol is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so it's worth a try because if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. So remember to head to zbiotics.com/OPL, use that code OPL at checkout for 15% off, and thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and for taking care of us. Yeah, so what are the repercussions of something like this? And I guess to start, so you go to the hospital and this was something that they were able to kind of tend to, and did it require anything or did it heal like okay?
They did a skin graft because it was a pretty large section and you know, it's a pretty like visible spot. So but I was in the waiting room for hours and it just felt like it was going on forever. I was way more annoyed that I was waiting for so long than I was of like what actually happened. Like what happened was just in the back of my mind. I wasn't thinking about that. I was like, fuck, now I got to wait here for however many hours. And then it's going to be a while until, you know, I get some kind of procedure done. And we were supposed to go away on vacation that weekend. So I was pretty pissed about that too. I was like, man, this is going to put a real damper on the vacation.
That seems like almost like a coping mechanism that would make sense in a way, because how do you even start to comprehend what has happened? Especially, this wasn't a stranger. This is like someone didn't break into your home. This is the person that you loved and lived with. But so you get tended to at the hospital, and I'm assuming you mentioned court already. So law enforcement gets involved. Can you walk us through what it's like now that the police have him in custody, you're fully comprehending what has happened here, and then what? Do you press charges? Like, how does this all unfold?
I didn't have a lot of like money for a good lawyer or anything. I didn't want money or anything. I just wanted him, you know, behind bars, because the only thing I could think of is I don't want this to happen to someone else. And obviously, you know, he can kind of put on this facade for a long, long time and get away with it and then just do something outrageous like this. And I was like, I don't want that happening to some other poor girl. So, you know, but he had money for a really good lawyer. So they started out with the defense of, oh, well, you know, she's got self-harm scars. Like she could have, you know, tried to do this herself. Like maybe he was probably just trying to stop her from, you know, doing like self-mutilating. But, you know, obviously that was bullshit. And then they were trying to turn everything on me and make it seem like, well, it was, I was the crazy one, or like, you know, maybe I was on other drugs or something. But, you know, they had done a talk screen and there was nothing in my blood other than, you know, the roofie. But
that's really fucked up.
Did he end up going to jail? Was there a punishment?
Yeah, he only got 5 years with eligibility. He can get parole soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I mean, it's still kind of not ongoing. It's just, well, every day I sit there and I'm like, that's just like not enough. Like,
Uh,
in however many years he's going to get out and then,
yeah.
possibly do this again. Like, it's just not, it doesn't sit right with anyone.
So this wasn't a mental breakdown of any sort, or it wasn't that he was just in a completely different state of mind or like had drugs that were altering his state. This was just him, just a fetish, a kink, an interest that he just decided that day, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, they checked his system for anything and he didn't have anything. He had done acid like once like a year prior, but like that was nothing. It was just, he took a trip. But he didn't have anything in him, and we were just trying to figure out if this was like malicious intent, if he, maybe he like always had something against me, or like he didn't actually love me, or maybe, he just wanted to be closer and consume me in a way, or maybe this was just like a sick fetish that he took too far.
Were you ever able to find that answer out?
No, his lawyers, and they just tried to turn everything around on me and make it seem like I was, a negative influence in the relationship, or like they were acting like it was like, oh, this was just like a little incident, like a smack on the wrist. Oh, they weren't acting like what had happened. And it was so weird because everyone around, like, no one was acting like this was a fucking terrifying thing that happened.
You also
Everyone
said that
was just like, oh, it's fine, whatever it happened.
you also said that that he had a piece of your skin still in his pocket. So I'm assuming that the police knew that, but they never, talked about how they obviously brought him in and were like, "Why the fuck do you have this piece of skin in your pocket?" There was never like an explanation given to you of like when he was brought in and sort of interrogated about the situation at all.
No, he didn't. I don't know much about how the initial interrogation went.
At that point, it's like you probably get a lawyer and it just immediately all becomes a case.
Yeah. I think they did try to, again, say like something like she was, mutilating herself and he tried to stop me. And that's why it was in his pocket, because I had already taken the piece off and I was in a sick state of mind and I did it to myself and he was trying to stop me. And
what is that like for you, in a courtroom and going through this and seeing the person that you lived with and loved just blatantly lying for this defense? And like, what does that do to you when all of a sudden this just comes out of nowhere and it's like you don't even know this person anymore?
It really sucked. He had never really, I kept thinking that I had done something wrong, or I was like looking back through like the 6 or 7 years of our, of us knowing each other and being together. And I was like, did I do something wrong at any point? Or did I trigger some kind of trauma response or something? Did I do anything to make him hate me to the point that he wanted to do this? Or was it him, loving me so much that he did this. And still I don't know if, this was a negative thing or in his mind a positive thing of, what he did. But I guess seeing him lie like that, I understand why, because obviously he didn't want to go to jail and they were doing anything that they, could, make him seem innocent.
Sure.
He ended up just, they tried to take the, insanity route. And they were like, oh, his mom was bipolar and his father was an alcoholic and this could have caused it. And, it could be genetic or whatever. And then that didn't really pan out either.
So how do you deal with that weight psychologically? Like, where are you now? I think you said this was 2022, not that long ago. So how do you kind of begin to cope and come with terms with something like this that you might never get the answer to? And has that affected future relationships, friendships, trust of people?
Yeah. Especially because I would have never known. And that's something that like my family says all the time. I didn't tell anyone until after I was out of the hospital. And even then it was just really hard to explain. And everyone in my family was just like, he was normal. How would this and people asked me, were there any big red flags, things that you missed? And I think back and I'm like, we got in little fights and stuff, but nothing, not a red flag of like, oh, this guy's, psychotic.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so eerie. And, we've had a lot of conversations on the show, unfortunately, about domestic abuse, sexual abuse in relationships. And a lot of that conversation is able to go back to identifying red flags and kind of similar traits and trends in people that then do become abusive. But this is just such its own case, and it's just so out there. And it's like, I mean, you do hear some stories like this, not often, but of people who have this interest or fetish or just, I don't know, they just want to eat people. And I guess that actually does exist out there. And it's crazy that you ended up with someone like that, but 6 years went by with no indication is wild. But I guess, like I said before, I mean, is there anything, I know you mentioned he could get out, and I guess the fact is he will get out eventually. Do you have fear of running into him again? Or do you have, like I said before, any fears of like even getting into another relationship or starting over with someone?
Yeah, afterwards, it took a while for the trauma to actually set in. And that's when I started realizing little things of like I felt really uncomfortable just eating in general, because every time I would eat, I would think of him eating me. And it's just really hard to detach, every aspect of my life to that one incident. And I just really don't, since it happened, I just remember this whole time thinking, I wish that this didn't fucking happen, but I also don't want to think about this every day. I don't want this to be something that every day I wake up and it's the first thing I think about, and it bothers me throughout the whole day, and I can't have a good day because I'm thinking about that. And I can't, it feels like I isolated myself from a lot of friends because, one, I knew they would have a lot of questions. But I only told like a few close people. It's not like it was something that, everyone knew about. It was just something that happened and was dealt with, very quietly. It's hard to, like, even with family, I feel uncomfortable sometimes because I'm like, well, how well do I know my family? And, how well do I know these friends that I've had for however many years? And how do I make new friends? How do I, I can't even think about getting into any kind of relationship.
Yeah, I imagine this is like a different level of trust issues with people, especially because the relationship lasted so long, and then, stuff like this would make you be like, I don't even know who this person is, obviously.
I don't know who anyone is.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you could look at your own family and be like, do we know who anyone ever actually is?
Yeah.
But wow. I mean, have you found any positives recently of, maybe progress you've made or ways that you've been able to separate yourself from the situation or work through some of this trauma, where it feels like you do have hope of, future relationships and, trusting people and, like you said, not thinking about this every single day?
Yeah, I think I do set small goals for myself, and I obviously do have a therapist that I try to work through some things. I've been through a lot of different therapists because, they weren't a good match. But I guess I just kind of try to set like little goals for myself, like even, going out for dinner with, a friend or family member, or, spending more time like out of the house, like actually going to do things and being productive and doing things that will keep my mind off of it. I don't think at this point I can think of, any kind of future relationships. I mean, maybe friendships, but I think it's still so soon. So I think it's probably a long ways away till I feel comfortable, getting into any kind of intimate relationship. I mean, unless I come across a, really special someone and I'm like, I'll give this a try, but, still I'm going to be like, who the fuck are you? And are you going to eat me in 6 years?
Yeah. I mean, wow. It's tough. I mean, first of all, just thank you for, sharing this and just walking us through how a person attempts to navigate this psychologically after it happens. There's a lot of tragedies or terrible things that happen in life or situations, but, sometimes there's examples and you can look to find other people who have been through it and how they've coped and give advice. And this just seems like something that's so bizarre, so just something someone would never expect to happen in their life. So I imagine it's hard because there's not just like a community or another person to go to. It's like, how, what can you do? What are some steps you could take when someone eats a piece of your leg off that you've been dating for 6 years? Like, where do you find that? So it's, but it is good to hear that, you're working through this and continuing therapy and making small steps. I mean, I don't know the answer to any of this, but the answer to progress is usually small steps and day by day. So that's good to hear at least. And we do hope, that you can continue getting to a point of, trusting others and doing more and putting this behind you.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's going to take a lot of work, some steps forward and however many fucking steps back. But yeah, I'm hoping to get to a place where I don't think about this as often and I can kind of put it behind me as much as one can in a situation like this.
Yeah, but just like Greg was saying, we appreciate you coming on and telling your story. I know it must not be super easy to recall a event like that happening in your life, so we appreciate you taking the time and talking to us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with everything and thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
I don't know what to say. That was the least expected thing to hear.
I'm trying to picture waking up and seeing that scene. I'd be like, what the fuck is happening? And also nothing being spoken, and then just getting up and casually walking out. You're like, what the fuck is going on?
It's a horror movie. That is written like a horror movie.
It's just confusing.
Exactly. That's the scariest part, like the psychological toll and what she has to go through now to I don't know how you find closure in that situation when you will never get an answer from the other person as to why. And it's just the biggest mindfuck of all is like, yeah, it's seeing that scene, but like, I'm literally trying to think, not just like seeing that scene, but like, it's my wife at the edge of the bed. Like the person that you've shared everything, you've been the most vulnerable with, that you think you know inside and out. It's that. It's mad confusing. That is just like, what? And it's not just... and then he's going through the legal process to try to get the least amount of years or possibly get off. So it's like he has the wherewithal. This wasn't just some crazy, mental breakdown or something that was diagnosed. It's just like, yeah, I went for it. And this person might do this again when they get out.
It just doesn't make fucking sense to me. I'm very confused by that.
Yeah.
The whole thing is like, it's just like the confusion is where the scariness is.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what? I don't even know what to say. What the hell is going on? Also, 3x6. That's a big fucking chunk.
Like, we're talking like bigger? 6?
I don't even know.
I don't know. At least she's okay from that physically, it seems. But that
Good
was...
Lord.
I don't know.
Now I have trust issues just hearing this.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, who's going to try and eat my legs?
Yeah, I'm never going away with you again.
I would never eat you. But yeah, thank you. We thank her again for coming on. That is just a wild, situation to be dealing with, and we hope that everything turns out well for her. But for anyone else that would like to be a guest on the show, hit us up. Our email is oplpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, TikTok at OPL Podcast. You could support at Patreon at patreon.com/OPL show. And yeah, like Joe said, reach out. And, a story like that is sort of the epitome of other people's lives. Like, it's the things you can't imagine that other people are going through. So we thank all our guests who come on and, share all of their stories. This show doesn't exist without them.
Yeah. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.